Thank you for joining us for this month's BIM XT presentation. We have now become kind of an umbrella event. BIM XT Network has now not only BIM XT Online, which you are now part of, but also our BIM XT live events, which hopefully are somewhere close to you. You can see I'm presenting here the mural, which Emily has shared in the chat. Hopefully you guys can get to that. Over on the very far right, you can see that the BIM XT Network live events are coming up. We have one in Richmond in September, various events there, Virginia Beach, Raleigh. In October, we have Washington, D.C., where I am, as well as Baltimore, Maryland. And hopefully you are able to visit our Charleston, Charlotte event, which happened in August. So continue to check out your emails, notifications on LinkedIn. Hopefully you're have joined our BIM XT LinkedIn group. You can see over on the very, very far left here in the mural, all of our BIM XT event information is live there. So you can get to the links through double clicking to our BIM XT network. Make sure that you're joined. You can get all of the information about the recording that you will get for each of our presentations, as well as information about our upcoming events. So make sure you check that out. In addition, you can see that BIM XT is run by a board of advisors. You can see all of our information is there for LinkedIn, Twitter, and even my Dynamo BIM YouTube channel there. So make sure you check those out. The BIM XT local events are also run by a board of advisors. So you can definitely reach out to CADD Microsystems and your local BIM XT group if you'd like to become more involved. Today, in our BIM XT online presentation, we have a really, really wonderful lineup. We're going to be talking about Revit 2024 new features. Hopefully you guys are already in there. Mike from CADD Microsystems is going to give us a 5-minute tip on some of those awesome new features. Today, hopefully you guys are familiar with Tadeh. He is an amazing Dynamo user, among other things. He's going to be talking about some rapid prototyping with Dynamo. You guys may have seen some presentations he's done in the past on Dynamo, other types of automation tools. And Andrew Watkins, one of our board members who we're lucky to have presenting today from Design Collective, is going to talk about the future of automation, which is, of course, a super, super hot topic. So without further ado, Mike, do you want to go ahead and jump us into Revit 2024? I'm super excited to see some of the things you have for us.
Yeah, Dana, thank you. I'm happy to be here today. I will go ahead and share my screen. Well, like I said, my name is Mike Massey, and I'm the Senior Practice Manager for Architecture and Engineering here at CADD Microsystems. I am excited to show you some of the new features today. Let me go ahead and advance this. Here's a little bit about me. I'm not going to spend much time about this, but if you want more information, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be glad to help you out as much as I can. But as far as Revit 2024, I want to show you some of the new features. It's been out for several months now. I think it came out in May-ish timeframe or something like that.
I think it was a little late. It comes in April, right?
Yeah, April and May. We typically get a sneak peek at it, but I think it was about that time frame. But anyway, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, it is filled with a lot of new features, and so I want to show you some of those new features today. So with that, I'll just go ahead and show you all the new features all in one slide. I only got 5 minutes, so I just thought I'd show you all the features in at once here. But seriously, there are a lot of new features, and what I'm going to do today is I've picked out my top 3. So we're going to show you my top 3 new features in 2024, but there are many, many others in addition to this. So I'll jump into this. My number 3 top feature that I want to talk about has to do with user interface enhancements, and you may have heard about this. You may have seen this. This has been a much requested item for many, many years, but it is the dark theme. You can now have a dark theme set in Revit to make it easier on your eyes. So you can, there's a setting in the control panel that you can pick and choose whether you want the light theme or the dark theme. And it is for and I want to make sure I point this out, it is for the first level user interface, which means not everything is going to be dark. For example, I've got the options dialog box, the picture of that on my screen. You can see that it's still white. So it's just for the first level, which means it's the main screen. Everything that's the palettes that are floating on your screen, all those will be dark. But if you get into some of the deeper dialog boxes, those are still going to be white. So I think it's a work in progress, but I think it's a much improved. I've started using the dark theme and I love it. It's really easy on your eyes and it's really nice. They've also introduced a bunch of new icons. Essentially, they look the same, but they've updated the icons to give it a more fresher look. Kind of modernize the icons there. So I think that's another enhancement that they've added there. Along with the dark theme, you also have they've added a new tool called Canvas Theme. So even if you set your canvas to dark, your screen to dark, you can set your canvas to white. And so you can toggle the canvas theme back and forth. So some people I know love the dark background coming from AutoCAD or coming from other CAD programs. You can do that, but now you can easily switch it back and forth on the View tab. There's a canvas theme option that you can switch back and forth between white and black. So that's the number 3 new feature. My number 2 new feature that I've got inside of Revit 2024 has to do with documentation. We spend a lot of times preparing our documents, making sure our documents are arranged the way that we want them to be arranged on our sheets. And so there's some enhancements that they've made to help this to make it easier. The first one is the ability to place multiple views on sheets. Now I'll have to tell you that you could actually do this in 2023, but in 2023, it didn't work very well. So they've made some improvements to this. What they've done is now when we place multiple views on a sheet at the same time, now it arranges them so that you can see them. In previous releases, it would just stack those views on top of each other and you'd have to go in and rearrange them. Now it does an attempt of arranging those views on the sheet so they're not stacked on top of each other. You still may have to move them around, but at least you can do that. But you can do this through either the project browser, just by selecting multiple views in the project browser and dragging them over, or you can use the view command, which will open up the select view dialog box, which will allow you to select multiple views in there. Along with that, we've also got an ability to use a command called move align to sheets. And what this will do is if you got a view, maybe it's a detail or something like that, and you realize, hey, you know what, I really need to move this detail to another sheet. We can move this detail now and it will put it in the exact same spot that it was on the previous sheet. And so you can get to this by expanding out the views inside a project browser and right-clicking and use the move align to sheet, and it will allow you to move that view very quickly to another sheet. And then finally, the last one that I've got along in this section is open sheets from a view. This is very handy. So if you're inside of a view and you want to jump to the sheet that view is on, now you can get to that sheet just by simply right-clicking. So if you right-click inside of a view, you have an option to open sheet, and it will go ahead and switch you over to that sheet. You can also do this in the project browser by selecting the view and right-clicking and doing that. If you do happen to be in a view that is placed on multiple sheets, like maybe a legend or something like that, it will open up a dialog box to allow you to pick which sheet specifically you want to open. And then that brings us to my number 1 new feature inside of Revit 2024, and that is has to do with design productivity, but that is the new Topo Solid. They have completely revamped all the site tools inside of 2024. Previous releases had the command a topo surface in there, but now we have a topo solid coming in. And so what they've done is completely changed out the way that creating the surfaces work. Now we have this new command called TopoSolid, and it is a solid. And I'll talk more about that in just a second. But just to kind of talk about it in general terms, if you have a topo surface in an older project and you convert that project to 2024, it will automatically convert that to a TopoSolid. You can link topography from either a CAD file or from a CSV file or from a civil file. You can still do that, but it's a great enhancement in there. So let me dive into this just a little bit. First of all, there's properties to these. And so there's type parameters to these topo solids, which allows you to create different types of topo solids. And it works very, very similar to floors. So if you're familiar how to create a floor inside of Revit, as far as using that layer structure, it's the same concept. And so we can create the structure of the topo solid. Maybe we have grass, maybe we have gravel, and then dirt, or whatever it is. We can build that up and give it thicknesses in there. These also we define the contours settings by the type properties, and so we can have different types with different contour settings in there. They are room bounding, which is nice. And so if we have a room that is going down into the ground, it will go down and it will act as a room bounding element. And it also has reporting elements that will automatically tell you the slope, the perimeter, the area, the volume, the elevation, and the top and bottom thickness, and the thickness of it. And so lots of new properties in there. If we take a look at it, we also have the ability to take these topo solids and subdivide them. If we start subdividing them, we can create elements like parking or sidewalks or things like that. And it will subdivide the topo solid up and allow you to create that parking element. These parking elements must have a thickness on there, so they kind of come up from the grade of the topo solid, and we have the option in there to either display contour lines on that division, or maybe we don't want to see the contour lines on that division. But it's very easy to do, and you got the freedom to create any kind of division you want to. The other thing that's new about this is how it works with building pads. In previous releases, we had building pads to cut out the hole for our building for the pad. And that is now a retired command. That is no longer in the program. So we're not able to do that. But what we have instead, we're able just to use balloon operations with in-place void mass families. And with that, we can cut out any shape we want to. So here's an example of a tunnel, a drive going down underground. That was just done by creating a in-place mass family, a void mass family, and cutting that out of the topo solid. So it's very nice, very easy to do, and you can cut out anything you want to. You're also able to use a split tool as well to divide this into separate elements if you need to. And finally, it's got the ability to act as a host. So now we can host things to this topo solid. So if we have site components or parking components or even rails, I know a lot of people use rails on sites for different reasons. We can now host that, and we'll take the angle and the shape of the topo surface, topo solid, sorry, and we're able to host things to that. So the topo solid command is pretty neat. If you haven't had a chance to play with it, take a look at it. It's a fun tool to play with. But like I said, there's many more features inside of Revit 2024. So if you want the full gamut as far as everything that's in there, I think I did a webinar earlier that's probably recorded that you can access, and you can see all the new features that I go through there. So I want to thank you. If you have any questions, let me know. But we'll turn it back over to you, Dana. And
well, that was incredible, I will say. And I love any of the new features that cut down on the amount of automations that we have to create or add-ins that we have to use. So some of those definitely are alluding to that. So love to see that. Thank you, guys. For all going into the mural. Definitely looks like we are filling up there. I would like to just share my screen briefly again. So bear with me, those of you who have already seen this. We have had quite a few people join us since the beginning of the presentation. You can see that the center of the mural here is purely for all of you. You can take these little tags here. They've been stacked on top of each other. And you can see over here on the left, we have basically a little area, kind of like a reference that tells you, BIM IT, that has a little laptop on it, right? So if I wanted to add a comment, I could just drag this over and start adding my comment, my name and location. We do give a prize for a participant every month. If you have any questions, please come down, throw them in the little area here for each of our presenters. And you can see here, we do have one about more civil features being incorporated into Revit in the future. Do you think that that's going to be the case, Mike, in terms of new Revit features, new Revit versions, and having more civil and topo additions? I believe you said that maybe this is kind of the version 1 of it. So I would assume that if nothing else, the topo surfaces and all of those elements will definitely become enhanced. Would you say that that's the case? Maybe he got froze on us, but I can
No, I'm
safely
here. I'm
assure.
here.
Oh,
Yeah, I
sorry.
would agree. I would
You
agree. I'm
agree?
sorry.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that if it wasn't kind of clear. It was a question. Well, with that being said, we next have Tadeh. He's going to be talking about prototyping with Dynamo. How are you doing today?
Good. How's everybody been? Happy to be
Doing
here.
so well. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting. Summer's coming to an end, right? We have to gear up for AU now.
That's right, guys. Better get your tickets and your rooms and everything. It's not far.
Absolutely. See everybody in person. So thanks so much for joining today. I'm very interested in hearing your presentation.
All right. Let's share the screen. We'll get going. Excited to share here. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see everything. I got my slide deck, so I'll go for a little introduction, then we'll do a live thing. This is going to be using Dynamo to create a rapid prototype model to automate your work. A little bit about me. I have over 10 years experience in AEC industry with a focus on design technology and BIM expertise, including architectural design, construction planning, field operations, research, developing, you name it. So I've been doing a little bit of everything over the last several years. And I always focus on how we can get more done with tools at hand. A great example of that is, Dynamo. So the goal for today is to identify some repetitive tasks and use Dynamo to manage that for you and create a repeatable workflow. So we don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to keep it very simple today. But the idea is I'm going to talk through something I did that can perhaps inspire all of you to try some scripting if you haven't done so already in a simple way that won't blow your mind, but might be useful. So we'll talk about some setup here. So if you guys want to follow along separately, you can. The essentials will be, let's skip this, Revit. I'm using 2022. I think the last from 2020 to 24 should be fine. Make sure I have Dynamo recent version installed, 2.10x, meaning 2.10 and above. Get some necessary packages if you need them, and get Excel if you don't have it installed, because I'm using Excel spreadsheet. Then if you don't know anything about Dynamo and you really want to learn more, make sure you try out the Dynamo Primer. That's free. And the Dynamo user forum is a great resource for questions. Don't worry, this deck I will share with all of you at the end of this presentation. So if you're hurriedly taking notes, you can take it easy. Okay, I'm going to skip a few of these just to get to the point, and we'll talk about the scripting, and I'll do the demo right now. And the premise of all this was I was trying to make multi-tower designs, just kind of quickly iterate them for an early phase of a project. And you could do it the old-fashioned way, where we just copy paste and modify, but it was a bit tedious. So I wanted to see if Dynamo could help me out with this. So there's a lot of repetitive tasks you can automate, and that's usually a cornerstone and a good starting point for any automation. There's something you could just over and over and over repeat again manually that you could just say, if I just had some instructions, I could make this automatic, right? Revit already has some built-in stuff for that, like generating certain content like views. But there's ways you can make the modeling go quickly using the Dynamo node. So a tower is a great example, a lot of repetitive elements, a lot of work to be done if you have to do it manually. So let's walk through a simple tower example. And I'll start with this concept of input, process, output. And if you're, this is how I structure my scripts for Dynamo. And if you're not familiar with it, Dynamo, to get anything out of it, you have to put into it. It doesn't just work in a vacuum. You have to tell it, put these things into some kind of process. So the inputs could just be text. It could be things called in from Revit model. And then from there, you tell it to do some instructions to modify the inputs and then spits out an output. So that's how I code these scripts. It's always good to organize them. So input, process, output. And I'll show you that as we go. And we'll start with the first one, which will be even simpler. It'll be the input of getting levels. So we're going to create levels and then create an output based on those levels of Dynamo. So with no further ado, let's go to our handy dandy Dynamo script. And just a disclaimer, make sure whatever file you're using, you understand where the levels lie, because the script will generate assuming from a certain base point. In this case, I have a 0, level 1 and 2. Revit always has some basic levels, so make sure you know where your levels are starting. Otherwise, you'll have a weird time with this. So I have this basic Revit model to be used. I know exactly where model is positioned in space, and I just want to add a bunch of levels, right? We can't get anything done in Revit without levels. If you're adding stuff to Revit without levels, don't do that. That's dangerous and cause you accidents. Always make sure you host things by level, and we'll see examples of how that works in this little presentation. So make sure you go to Manage tabs, click on Dynamo, and let it load for a moment. This one's getting started. And since this is a live demonstration, anything could go wrong, which is fun and exciting, but also lends itself to working on the spot, any issues. So let's see how this goes. I'll bring this over here. And since this window wants to be dominant at all times, I'll have to go between this and Revit. Okay, so I have my Dynamo environment. I'm going to open. I have some files ready to go here. These are my Dynamo files, keep them in one area. I'll start with level by code. This is really simple. All this is the input, like I mentioned here, and an output. You don't have to really do any processing. It actually kind of works itself out with the level by elevation. Level by elevation will just create as many levels as you want according to elevation information. And of course, you have to remember if it's your feet or meters. In this case, it's feet. And remember I said, I already have level 1 and 2. Level 1 or level 1, 0, level 2 is 10. I want to continue that pacing and just add more levels until I get to 812 feet. So it's going to be starting at level 3 at 20 feet, going all the way to level, level 3 at 20 feet, going all the way up to 812 feet in 12 feet increments. That's all this means. Start 10 steps. Plug that into the level by elevation. And if you want to change these numbers, you could change this to whatever, 500 or anything you like. That's just the value. But we're just going to use this input and run it and see what happens. This run started, completed, and I got my levels. All right. So that's something you don't have to do manually. If you ever have to do a lot of levels, even a few, do it through Dynamo. It's precise, it follows instructions, you get everything you want. Cool. We did our levels. Now we can add the actual building. And this is where it gets a little more interesting. And I'll start from the end in mind. The end in mind, in this case, is to generate an automatic building. The output is where we'll focus on, which is to create a wall and create floors. So I want both walls and floors. And this is just saying this wall we've created, or this wall we created by curve, meaning lines, and the height. Curve, height, level, wall type. We won't go into too much detail here, but that's what I'm using to generate the actual walls. And the floors, similar concept, they'll be outlines, slash lines, and level. So even though the language here is a little different, the concept's the same. Horizontal levels or horizontal lines, vertical levels. And the inputs on the left here will be pretty straightforward. All we're doing is telling it what kind of wall type. Basic curtain wall, again, in all our projects, curtain wall 1 for the walls. Make sure all elements are category, levels. If it's not levels, it's not going to work. And then floor types, you can pick whatever floor type. I just put generic 12. As long as the floor, this will work. And then we can pick our XYZ points. This is a four-sided or four-cornered building. So I can either assign each one of these XYZ values separately or use these sliders. So I'll show you how that works in a moment. But all we're doing is we're taking these points kind of like connect the dots, and these types, these element types, and lining them up through the processing. That's the input, that's the output. We're just going to tell them, combine all the XYZ points into a list, combine the lists, and then you'll create the floor outline, and then add levels to that and basically mix and match. I would like to go into more detail, but we don't have a ton of time, so go ahead and ask any questions you want. But this is my process of basically telling it, use the geometry to process the location of everything. So that's all it is. This middle portion is just processing geometry and inputs, get the output. So if this works out the way I want it to, should be fine. I go run started, run completed, and you can see the preview in the background here of all the geometry, which is a good sign that if this connects the way I want it to, like a stack of cards almost, that's a sign that it's good. You don't have to edit or write to Revit immediately. You can just see the preview. So the preview looks good. Let me go back to Revit. And in Revit, looks like I got my tower. All 68 floors, I believe. Yeah, 69 if you count the roof. So I quickly generated a building, and I could go here and show you the shaded version of it. So I got my curtain wall and floors, and very useful for a study if I just want to see what this thing looks like. If I want to change it a little bit, I can come back here, change the slider to some other numbers. I changed the, maybe I want a boxier building. Let's say 60 feet by 80 feet. I run it again, go back, and I got a bigger building. So you can kind of play around with this. You can have more points. You can change the sliders and get a bigger building and quickly figure out like what this thing is going to look like. And you could do this for a lot of other configurations that require points. So this is an example of just taking some basic geometry, mixing it with different inputs and outputting floors or walls, or you can probably do this with ducts and conduits when you think about it for multiple levels. For now, we'll leave this as is. We could do more with this, but just be mindful you could change these inputs on the left here. As long as the processing is in good order, you can spit it out. So that's the general idea with the script here to generate the building. Next, let's try something a little different, which should be views. So we have all our levels now, but we also need views. Otherwise, we'd have to generate the views. You could do that through Revit itself. You could just go to the menu, manage views and add views. But I also want to create, I also want to apply the view template to them. So I want to do a couple of things at once. I typically have to do views and ceiling plans. So regular floor plan views and ceiling plan views. So let's do that, create them all, and also apply a template at the same time. Let's do multiple things at once. In this case, I'm going to set parameter, and that parameter is going to be an output of levels with templates. So already have the levels created. Now we're just going to apply a template. So the templates applied will be the ceiling plan and architectural plan templates. And we're going to use the levels as an input, because levels, again, levels hosts everything, so we get everything we want out of the levels. And from the levels, all the elements of the levels, I can then generate ceiling plans and floor plans, and from them apply the template, and then you'll see the list. And again, you can use these techniques for other kind of applications. This is a simple way of just generating them. So I'm going to click run, let it go for a moment. And then before you know it, this preview will show me I have all the stuff done. That's a good way of checking. 68. Everything here looks good too. Everything's set. So if I go back to Revit, what do we have? I have all my floor plans like so. And then I have all my ceiling plans. And they do have the templates applied to them. So all at once, I created a list of all the floor plans, ceiling plans, the templates to both. So that's 130 some odd operations I avoided, or 140 actually. So we'll continue that, and we'll do some sheet work. Now we have all our views and levels, and they're set up nicely. We'll do the next step here, which is applying the sheets. And the easiest way I've noticed with Revit is to just use Excel spreadsheet. And what you're going to do is create a spreadsheet. Now that we know we have 68 levels, what you want to do is have sheet numbers. You can generate these with Excel, where you have a, say, sheet 8101 associated with level 1, 102 with level 2, and so on until you get to the final sheet. So you have column A with the sheet number, column B with the sheet name, and just have it structured in a very straightforward way, because we're going to use this spreadsheet to tell Dynamo here what to do. So all it's going to do is say, hey, look for the code block, go for the sheet name, which is this guy, the sheet name down here on the tab called Sheets from the file path. Look at the index, which is going to be 1 or 0, 1. 0 is A, 1 is B. And then it just says basically put every level onto the associated sheet name and generate it and spit it out. So that's all this is. So again, input is the file that I have for all this content. The processing is telling it where to put all that information. And the title block, I set it to 30 by 42 horizontal. What view type, floor plan, and then just set this all up for me automatically so that all the views will end up on all the sheets. I'll generate all the sheets and I'll add all the views to them. So make sure you have the right path. You have to select it. I already selected here or a few levels above. So if this works, we're in good shape. So I'm going to run it. And if everything is the way I want it to, it'll give me all the views and all the sheets after this manually. Since this is a more thorough operation, I'll take a moment. Okay.
And this is amazing. I mean, just, showing the process of from zero to construction documentation. I think that, this is exactly the type of process we should think about when constructing these types of things. In terms of the floors, we do have a question in terms of whether those floors are hosted to the level.
So good question. These floors are definitely hosted by level, which is why I generated all those levels first. If I go to like level whatever, arbitrary 36, click on the floor here, it's level hosted 36 because I generated all the floors in that prior example with the tower I was generating. Every floor made goes to the levels one by one. So if I go here, 3D view, these are all hosted. Everything's hosted. The walls themselves are not segmented. You could do that a different way, but they're hosted level by base constraint and just pushed up to wherever the height is. But you can split them later. But with the same technique, you can just host them. So every single floor is hosted on a separate level, 0 offset, so that these views would work. Otherwise, the views would be really screwed up. You want to make sure everything's procedurally done in a sound fashion. That's why I set that up. So good question.
And the other one is, are you going to be sharing your scripts with the PowerPoint?
Only if you pay me for the subscription plan. No, I'm just joking. These will all be
that is
shared.
A question in there that do you sell your scripts? I basically answered with there are various consulting firms that will work with your company to create scripts based off your standards.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies out there, just as an aside, will help you with that. And this is like a general example we're showing today, right? You can apply this to anything, which is the purpose of this. Otherwise, it'd be too specific. And I've seen lots of great Dynamo examples that are awesome, but they're a little constrained because they might have been made for a specific template for a specific company's way of working. So this is kind of a starting point. But yeah, there's a lot of consultancies out there that help you do very specific things like formwork for concrete. I've seen that. So if you guys have any questions about how this would work within the company, feel free to reach out to me online, whatever. You can find me on LinkedIn, what have you. But and if you, any questions you have about that. But for this demonstration, I'll give you the whole package of everything.
But it's also worth noting that these aren't typically something that you're going to be able to just run and have the expectation of exactly what you need. I mean, these scripts will take some manipulation in some way, typically to get you the outcome that you would expect or that you would desire. So typically by having either a consultant on staff or the ability to bring them in, or like today, or having somebody specifically hired by your firm, like me at Smith Group, that specifically helps with computational workflows is obviously advantageous. Either path.
That's a great point. Dana makes a great point because she's a specialist in this. I worked in specialization of this, and it goes a long way to have like 1, 2, however many people you need any company working with this technology to just work on it full-time, part-time, because you get these kind of results. I did this on my spare time when I was making this, and I was doing similar things. They were trying to figure out how to capitalize text in Revit's like room tags, and I'm like, oh, let me, because manually it would have taken me forever. I'm like, oh, let me just do this thing where it's literally a couple of nodes and you're done. And they were astonished. That saved a lot of hours that they could have put to something else. So if you guys are curious about like how would you do this at your company, trust me, if you're using Revit at all or anything that would potentially use low code like this, and like a Dynamo, invest in it. Like that's not even have a debate. Just invest in it and hire somebody or give them hours, and uh, and it'll go a long way. And again, you can reach out to me about that, but you will get all the documents here. But yeah, real quick, let's go to the sheets, and then we'll go to our last stage for this demonstration. So I have all the sheets from A101, A168 listed, and there they are. You can use other techniques to center it, but this is just kind of centering to the lower corner of the view to 0, 0 the sheet. And there's ways you can organize it. Revit 2024 has great ways of organizing it. So now I don't have to put each view on each sheet, which is great. I can quickly spit out a set of documents, and because these each have a template, I can quickly modify a template and change the graphics as well. So you're solving a lot of problems very quickly to get this thing set up. Going back to our handy dandy Dynamo, we're going to do one more step here. And we're going to do, now that we did the automation, I'm going to set property values. And what I'm going to do here, so we automated it, annotated it, put it on sheets. I'm going to then modify because I want to put some information. And this is pretty simple. These element.set parameter my name is pretty useful. All it says is like, give me an element. What's your element? Rooms, walls, what's your element? And then tell me what the parameter name is, the property name off to the left that we edit all the time. What property name? Tell me what value you want to put in there. So I'm going to look on floors. Is that floors categories? Yeah, floors. I was going to use something else, but floors is actually pretty good here. It could be rooms, it could be walls. See, you can pick anything in the model. It gives you everything. We'll pick on floors. And if I go back to floors real quick, just to show you what's this going to be, a level, like yeah, 36, whatever. We have comments and mark properties, right? I can manually type this out, but I want to do this for every floor. And I want to make it quick. Yeah, we could select them all in 3D and edit them, but what if I just had a clean way of doing it where I won't make mistakes? Well, we could just go back to Dynamo here and tell it for the property comment and the property mark, for every comment, put reviews SF, square footage, and for every mark, just put type 1. And then if I do that for floors and run it, go back here, every single one of my floors would have those comments, and you could just kind of go to town on any element whatsoever in the model, and you can filter them to select certain types if you don't want all of them. And then at that point, you can put kind of any data, number data, text data, this is text data, and say, hey guys, I made my tower, and go from there. And if you don't like this tower, if you think the tower is too boring, there's one more step here. I can just delete this all because we have nothing to lose, and go back to Dynamo, and this will be the last thing I'll show you. I kept it simple, but if you want to go to town on this, we have the multi-point version of this, where I showed you 4 points. You could do more points. You could do as many points as your heart's content, as long as you organize them correctly. So you see, everything else is the same with creating a tower. I'm going to just leave these values alone, run, and then we'll get another tower here. Whoops, I picked the wrong thing. I didn't correct the floor. Should be floor, guys, not floor membrane. That's not going to help us very much. So I'm going to correct this real quick. Everything else here looks good. Category, excuse me, levels. Floors down here. My bad. Levels, L for levels. There we go. Run it one more time. Great. You can see the preview here. It looks like kind of got half of a casket. And we go back here and we have our casket building. I'm gonna run it one more time to clean up the graphics there. There you go. So you can change this to your heart's content. You don't have to be a 4-corner building. Put as many corners as you like. You can use circles. But you can do exactly the thing I did. And I think the views still work here. So there you go. So that's the presentation today. I would love to show you more, but you know what, guys? I'm not gonna leave you hanging. There's more content here with all of the
Well, we'll
examples.
just have to have you back because there are questions all over the place,
I would expect, yeah, I
which
went a
is
little quick.
awesome.
My
I've been
apologies.
trying to get to them in there.
But
One of them specifically was, could you use a building footprint? Do you want to answer that, or should I really quickly? And just a few seconds for some
oh yeah,
thoughts.
real quick, the QR code here. You see the dinosaur on the right. scan that, you'll get the entire deck and the files that I used.
Look at that.
But it said building footprint. So if you had the building for, yeah, you could
So
just say that again.
yeah, I would probably say like, where is that building footprint coming from? Right? Are
Mhm.
you going to use a background from the civil? Or are you using like an AutoCAD? And then essentially based off of that, you would just need to select that geometry in Dynamo. So 100% you could use that. One of
Excellent
those
answer.
things that you could bring in a consultant or like today, or hire someone like myself permanently, not me personally, to have this work within your company. So we'll try to get to all of the questions. Keep them coming. They're awesome. I'm going to throw in the QR code that he just shared with us here so that you can get to all of that. I've also shared the Dynamo primer as well as some Dynamo packages within the area there, alluding to some of your questions. So definitely thank you so much today. That was such a fantastic presentation. And like I said, we'll definitely have to have you back.
Yeah, we could do part two, which is a little more in the weeds. But feel free to reach out to me, guys, if any questions. I'll hang around for the rest of the talk.
And last but not least, one of my faves, Andrew. How's it going today?
Good, Dana. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Just like feeling frantic, all these questions, trying to get to all of them. It's awesome.
There's a lot to go over, right?
Yeah, well, and you're probably going to bring on just as many questions with the future of AI, right? That's just
Well,
our
honestly,
automation.
I'm super excited what today just showed because I'm going to use AI to do exactly the same thing in even less time. So it's really going to be cool, a cool evolution and progression here. So what we're going to be talking about now is automation and AI and revolutionizing architecture and engineering. I'm going to stay away from construction with this one, but we could hit that on future sessions. I started out with ChatGPT. I wanted to feed it a request to give me a starter joke. And I'm going to cut to the chase because ChatGPT is really bad with humor. So fortunately, AI is not going to replace those of us that like to use humor. So I said, give me a funny starter joke for a presentation about automation and design. And it said, architect, what did it say? I lost it. Doesn't matter. It wasn't funny.
You said yourself it doesn't do well with humor, so.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a couple of quick quotes here because I know there's a lot of concern about AI in design and how it's going to affect us. And this is from an article that was about automation, and it's really talking about how it's just kind of quietly going to be working away in the background, and it's ultimately going to be working on things that humans can't possibly solve because there are too many variables, or it's working on too large data sets. And this one from the AIA, as you can expect, they are still plugging away for maintaining architects in the workplace. But AI can't help with increasing efficiencies, but when it comes to reliability, stability, and functionality, you can't substitute the expertise. All right, so it's poll time. And fun fact, that little kid is now 17 years old, but that has been around for a long time, that meme. So I'm going to launch this poll. Let me know if you can see it.
Not yet.
Hmm.
Maybe I don't though, because I'm a host.
Tadeh, can you see the poll?
He's a
When I
co-host
first
too.
logged in, I could see the poll if it was
Oh,
the question poll but not right now.
all right. Maybe we can do this later because it was just a couple of quick questions. One,
Oh, it says
is your
94% participated.
participated?
So
Yeah, 84 of 89. Good. Question one, is your firm using any AI tools in your work? And if so, what tools? Chatbots, image generators, note takers, model generators, analyticals, or other? So that's really cool. And we're going to talk about that in a little while here. So I'm going to close that, go back to the presentation because, oops, go away, poll.
sorry. messing with things.
Yeah, what's going on here?
I guess we will share the answers to the poll after the fact. I don't know whether everybody
Thanks.
was able to see those.
Yeah, that's wonky.
Well, the
It,
host got a different view, I think.
yeah, I think so
Hard
too.
to say.
It was as expected that some are using AI, but not many, and it's sort of the chatbots and a few other things, but a lot of people are just dipping their toe into it. So I just wanted to show this graph, the top 5 of these professions that are going to be exposed to AI and automation are all of the things that we do in the design industries, including admin tasks, legal liability exposure, studies of life and physical sciences. We all deal with business and finance and also community engagement. So all of these things are going to, in some form or fashion, be affected by automation. So I want to kind of throw this up here because I want to connect the dots for everybody and what we're going to be talking about today. So from initial text prompt, we're going to be able to generate an outline, develop a full presentation with imagery that is developed, ultimately moving to an optimized and analyzed conceptual model, full building information model, and ultimately to a full set of CDs. So some incredible stuff happening here. So we're going to talk about specifically the Office admin tasks, presentation and visualization tools, and some next-gen ideas. So for Office and admin, meeting minutes. Do not be afraid of meeting minutes because I'm going to flip over here to Fireflies, and Design Collective is starting to use Fireflies as an AI note taker. And it's interesting. So these are all the meetings that I have collected with Fireflies. So I'm not taking any meeting minutes at all. I'm just going to click on this one, and we're going to talk about swap here in a few minutes. But it ultimately gives me a meeting summary. It gives me the outline of discussion points, and it even gives me where those chapters happen. And so you can jump right to those in the recording. Gives me some general notes and some action items. Those are the most important part of the meeting minutes, right? And it gives me a whole transcript. So ultimately I can, there we go. There's the poll results. So
and
I
also
can,
Emily shared them on the mural, so you guys can get to them.
Excellent. Now I can copy all of this into my meeting minute template and send it out to the client. I can even jump to specific areas about where there were questions asked. So there are lots of things to be gained from using this kind of platform. So Fireflies, as I said, typically architects in a firm the size of Design Collective will spend about $500,000 a year writing meeting minutes, which is a crazy amount of spent time if you think about it. So we're really trying to condense that amount of time. All right, ChatGPT. Here we go. We can use it to write text for a proposal. We can use it to draft an email in the tone of Barack Obama, for instance, or write a letter. But I'm going to show a demonstration of it generating Python code to run in Dynamo and create content in Revit. So here we go. I'm going to set this to run in high quality mode. For some reason, it does not do that automatically. So I asked it to give me a series of nodes to create levels, grids, views, and sheets. So it's giving me different Python codes for each of these functions, which is what I asked it to do. Task 3, create the views, and then place the views on the sheets. So as you can see, I can copy that code directly into a Python node in Dynamo. And here we are in Revit 24, dark mode. So I've generated new levels, and I will say that, give a caveat that there's some editing that needs to be done because the API isn't necessarily exposed completely. So ChatGPT cannot review that in the World Wide Web. So it doesn't know all the ins and outs of doing this stuff. But when I hit run, it created the grids, it created all the levels. You can see over on the left side, all of the MEP floor plans have been created. and it dropped them all on sheets. So that was obviously sped up, but it really only took me about 20 minutes from inception of typing in the initial prompt to creating the information in Revit.
Amazing. I did some like very basic asks in ChatGPT, like, create element types. And it was surprisingly really good. But
Yeah,
seeing it to
it
that
really
level
is.
is amazing with the different tasks.
As long as it doesn't do humor, we're fine. All right.
No humor, Python to
Upcodes.
Dynamo, we're good.
So
Noted.
Upcodes is an online code research platform, and it's one of those things where we spend a lot of time doing it, and it's repetitive. Every project we have to do it because we have to do code review sheets, right? So for each jurisdiction, it's all listed over here in on Upcodes, but they have a new feature called Copilot. And in Copilot, I can study my jurisdiction and I can pick the code year and I can pick the building type. So let's do multifamily residential. And I'm going to just ask, what are the design area to when a multi-story stair for a high rise. I'm hoping it's understanding my misspellings. Yep. So it's getting a multi-story egress stair. You can see it's pulling diagrams already. It's referencing the code sections that are relevant to the Maryland jurisdiction. So it's talking about stair size. And this is not a recording. This is all live, by the way. So you can see it is pulling all the reference sections, and I can copy this text into my code review report and continue on with my building design. So I'm going to jump back out of this. Whoops. So we've done some initial office tasks, and now we're going to start talking about how we can put presentations together. And these are the kind of the lifeblood of architects and how we gain approvals to actually win a project or move on into next design stages. So I will say the presentation that I'm showing you was developed with Google Slides AI. So I typed in a prompt and it gave me a whole set of slides. Obviously, it's been heavily edited afterwards, but some of the images it gave me, I did leave in here. And then PowerPoint new, we're going to look at in a second. So Tome is what we're going to look at specifically, and I can type a text prompt, and it's going to give me a series of slides. So here's a recording of that. And I'm going to prompt it to give me a thought leadership piece of 8 slides about future of multifamily design. So it's pretty incredible what it's going to throw together here. It's giving me case studies of new design projects. It's going to give me some of the new design features that people are incorporating into multifamily design. Areas for innovation, how people are proposing and showcasing their ideas, the importance of sustainability. So you can see, it's obviously not something I'm going to just hit publish on. You have to edit it and make it your own. But I've already shortcut about an hour's worth of work just to get started in this template. And I can set up your own company templates within here also.
Very cool.
Okay. So PowerPoint.new is, so now that I've developed my template and my presentation, PowerPoint.new, all of you can do this right now. Just go to that website, PowerPoint.new, sign in with your Microsoft credentials, and you can pull in a current PowerPoint presentation or just use a standard one. And you click the little down arrow next to present. And I hit rehearse with coach. See, I should have done that more. And what that's going to do is you're going to present it to nothing but the computer with your camera on. and it's going to record you doing this, and it's then going to give you some reactions. And it's going to give you things like, how many times did I say or use filler words? How was my pace? Did I go too fast or too slow? Did I raise and lower my pitch in order to keep the audience interested? How was my body language? All of those things, it's going to let you get better at presenting. So we've done our presentation, we've prepared the slides. Now we need to develop the imagery. And these are the things that, we all convey design ideas through imagery. So we're going to look at 3 of those tools: Midjourney, LookX, and Project Virus. So Midjourney,
morning, just heads up.
Okay, thank you.
Time flies when you're having fun.
We're definitely going to go beyond that, but sorry, but this will be recorded. So this is a Midjourney prompt from 2022, Donald Trump and Barack Obama playing basketball. Here's the 23 version. So you can see how far it's come in just a matter of months. So you can imagine next year what this is even going to be capable of. LookX is a very much focused on a similar platform, very much focused on architectural renderings. So I fed into it a sketch of an elementary school, and it brought back, I prompted it to give me a brick and gray metal panel elementary school with a forest in the background. And you can see it gave me several passable images. It gave me a parking lot. It did not give me the school buses I asked for. It does have plugins for SketchUp and Rhino. Virus by Evolve Lab is kind of my favorite because it uses your geometry, Revit, SketchUp, and Rhino as the substrate for the text prompt renderings that it's going to generate. So here we are in Revit. I'm going to hit start. It is going to open Virus, and it's the current just base model 3D view. I can change how stylistic I want it to get, how creative I want it to get. And my text prompt is light beige building, dark brown brick bands, and a dark granite base. And you can see it took me about 6 seconds to render that out. It gave me the dark bands, it gave me the dark base. And then I'm going to change the prompt and ask it to render the sidewalk as red brick. Unfortunately, Virus at the time didn't know that the floor in the foreground was a sidewalk, so it didn't know what to do with that, and it just kind of didn't do anything. But Virus also has an online platform, and I was able to drag a sketch of a famous hotel in Barcelona directly onto the platform. And I'm going to ask it for some renderings. And it's cool. Hello?
Oh, no. Keep going.
Okay.
I think that was
and it's going to, I just asked it for a modern glassy hotel on the waterfront. It made some really cool sort of moody images of a glassy hotel. And you can see it's almost like an island floating in water with boats around it and mist. And you can, once it's done rendering those 4, I can pick which one I like best, and I'm going to refine it a little bit. And I want to take this area and tell it, it's not a boardwalk. I want this to be all sandy beach. So I can quickly modify the prompt to just re-render that area, and it's going to give me a little sandy beach area. So I went from just a quick hand sketch to full sort of impressionistic rendering in just a couple of minutes. I'm actually going to skip this one, but Photoshop has very similar capabilities where I can use generative fill, I can extend the extents of an image, and it will use AI to fill those things out. All right, so let's get into some next-gen stuff. Forma is, as alluded to earlier, formerly SpaceMaker. And the exciting things about Forma is not necessarily its ability to grab terrain or the context, but its ability to do lots of proposed buildings and structures, and it does analysis of these each time you make a modification. It is constantly giving you takeoffs of the different space types. And then the AI comes in when you want to do different studies of sunlight, of daylight, of wind comfort, and microclimates. So each time I make a geometry modification, the AI is running in the background to understand what is happening to the environment around you. Hypar. Many of us know Hypar. They have now started to incorporate some AI into their platform. So here we are. I'm going to mute this guy because it's got some funky music running, but the text prompt is give me a podium building, and it's going to run all of the, based on the text prompt, it's going to run all of these different workflows to fill out the grid, the floors, add a roof, give me the full building structure, give me the facade, and it's also giving data analytics of all of those things so that I can understand how much facade, how much skin I have, how much steel I have. The prompt has been modified. Now it's just a podium building with a couple stories of residential on top. And now we can start to look at modifying the geometry a little bit. And again, text prompt was the seed for all of this. All right, so I alluded to swap earlier. I'm not going to play this video. I'm just going to kind of describe what's happening. So swap is going to take and study what you are typically document. So they're going to review over the course of several months how a firm documents buildings. And it's very much limited to multifamily and K through 12 buildings because it's got a lot of repetition to those typologies. And what ultimately swap is going to do is return a full BIM to you and a full set of construction documents. So this one is a little bit scary, a little bit, I'm a little bit skeptical, simply because does it really learn well enough to document like we document? Will we
maybe
avoid
if you
liability?
work in one jurisdiction as well?
Right. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on, and because this has the potential to affect positions potentially. So let's stay tuned with that one. Augmenta, I love this one.
Definitely scary.
I'm excited for Augmenta because now we've moved to full set of CDs, but this is going to automate the building systems designs. So Augmenta was founded by several gentlemen from Autodesk. They decided to go in a different direction and incorporate AI much more into systems designs. It currently only is doing electrical systems, but what it's doing is it's allowing the designers to upload their model. It will do an analysis of whether you can, what's best. So it's going to do a scatter chart of cable trays versus a conduit delivered system. So here we see the routing for conduits. It's obviously everything's savings, but I'm pretty excited for what this might do for the MEP design industry. So we've hopefully connected the dots from text prompt all the way through to a full set of construction documents to deliver to an owner. Just to conclude, AI is not going anywhere, but our jobs are safe mostly, we think. We are going to have to change, though. Our competition, as we saw from the poll results, they are going to be already using some of these technologies. We can use them right now, as I demonstrated. A lot of them are available now.
Well, and I will ask one question before we leave. We're a little over time, and
Please.
I apologize for those of you guys who couldn't stay with us. We will share the link as soon as we have it. What would you say to the security of using some of these platforms? The concern that maybe companies should have with their general users using this for proposals, for example.
I'm the chief IT officer for Design Collective, so that's like my first and foremost concern. And I am not concerned about things like fireflies. Using ChatGPT is typically fine. The problem is when there are so many other knockoffs that are trying to do the same thing, they become playing grounds for hackers. So I would very much stay to the tried and true and not necessarily look at trying everything that you read about on Instagram, TikTok, or X.
And don't put anything in that's confidential or secure. Keep that
Correct.
probably outside of those tools.
Keep
Thank
it
you guys
outside
all
your
so
door.
much for presenting. Those presentations were amazing. And I feel like all of them could probably use a part two. So we will go ahead and end as we are over time. Thank you all for our presenters and participants today and the amazing show that we had on the mural as well, the activity that we had there. We hope to see you next time and hopefully live at AU. So check out some information there.